Good evening. So when President Schill first arrived in Eugene, I had a meeting with him, and he said, you know, Richard, I want you to think big, and I want you to put some pretty big requests into me. And so I thought a little moment, I thought, well, I'll have a joke. I said, could you organize a solar eclipse in Oregon? I didn't realize he was actually going to do it. Thank you, Michael. Did anyone see it? So scientifically, in a way, it's quite trivial. You know, one object moved in front of another and blocked the light. As simple as that, right? But when you see something like that with your own eyes, then we all remember that like really awe-inspiring moment where we feel that deep connection with the universe that we live in. And that's what our vision gives to us. Now, I've got to work out how this thing works. It's not that. Dave, did you hand me the right thing?
Green is good.
Green is good. All right, cool. Imagine now, though, if all that you saw was just inky blackness all of the time. You know, imagine the loss day after day. So tonight, I want to firstly emphasize just what a gift our human vision is to us. And then I also want to tell you about our plans to restore vision to those who've lost this gift. So let's start at the start, a very simple thing. Light comes in through a window at the front of the eye, and then a lens focuses it on a screen at the back. And the screen is composed of these little light detectors called photoreceptors. So each photoreceptor receives light and converts it to an electrical signal. And then that signal is passed to the brain along your body's electrical wiring, what we call the neurons. So this black pupil is the window that lets the light in. And then the iris surrounding it controls the size of the window. But the iris also serves an aesthetic function. Its name is actually derived from Greek mythology, and it means the goddess of the rainbow. Now, early humans all had brown eyes. Blue eyes only emerged as recently as 5,000 years ago. So next time you get a chance, just marvel at all of those subtle little color variations in your own personal rainbow, because it's a recent development in our human adventure. Now, looking in through that window, you can see it's dark in there, and that's a good thing. It means that all of the light has been absorbed by those little photoreceptors on the back screen. Let's have a look at those. I always think that they look like a vegetable garden, right? But they're a very small vegetable garden. Each photoreceptor is about 1 million times smaller than a meter, and then that's small, so you can cram 126 million of them into each eyeball. Because just like your digital camera, the more pixels, the better the image that you're going to get out. This is the electrical wiring in the screen at the back. So all of those intricate connections form an electric circuit that process and enhance the signal so you see more clearly. For example, these two circles on the left and right, in reality, they are exactly the same color. They look different because they've been processed by this electric circuit. Then this enhanced signal gets sent off to your brain. Every second, your eyes bombard your brain with 2 billion pieces of information. The whole of the rest of your body combined sends less than half that amount to your brain. So right now, that's what's happening to your brain. Your eyes are bombarding it with all of this information. And to cope with it, 1/3 of your brain is dedicated to vision. Now, the music lovers out there are always surprised and I think a little disappointed to learn that hearing only gets 3% of your brain. So vision gets 10 times more than your hearing. Vision is your primary sense, and you can see that in the phrases we use. I see what you mean. We equate seeing with meaning, right? You've just used your vision to sense the magnificence of this self-portrait, for example. But vision gives us more than knowledge. It also allows us to appreciate beauty. And nature's beauty and its impact on us is profound. For example, patients recovering from major surgery recover far more quickly if they're given a window looking out on nature's beauty. But what is it about nature that makes it so beautiful? Well, typical natural scenes like this one of the Cascades are composed of what are called fractal patterns. And fractals are simply patterns that repeat themselves at different magnifications. So our great examples are trees. You have a big branch that splits into smaller branches, that splits into smaller branches, that splits into even smaller branches. The same with rivers. Mountains are fractal. You have these big peaks sat on top of those smaller peaks, sat on top of those even smaller peaks. Clouds are fractal. You have bumps upon bumps upon bumps. So when you're staring out at nature, you're actually staring out at fractal patterns. And through evolution, your visual system has adapted to process these fractal patterns with ease. And that's called fractal fluency. Your eye has become fluent with this natural language of fractals. And our research shows that this fractal fluency is occurring at many different stages of the visual system, all the way from the way that your eyes move through to which parts of the brain get activated. Our research also shows that it's this fractal fluency that is inducing this profound aesthetic experience, which causes your body to relax by up to 60%. So when someone loses their vision, not only do they lose this primary sense for acquiring information, they also lose this calming connection with nature's beauty. Now, there's 39 million people around the world who are totally blind, many of them since birth. And then there's another 246 million people who've suffered vision loss to the extent that it severely impacts their daily activities. Now, we've all met people who've been blind from birth, and they can do astonishing things. In a way, blindness is a part of who they are, and they may not even be interested in technology that could give them vision. But what about the other 246 million people who've had vision, they rely on it, and then they lose it? They will want it back, and they'll want it back desperately. Now, your photoreceptors, those little light detectors on the back screen, they are absolutely vital. If you damage those, that will lead to a blind spot in your vision. For example, all of those little silver points there, they are healthy photoreceptors. And that dark crescent region, that's a region where they've been damaged. That was caused by someone looking directly at the clips without the appropriate safety spectacles. So just 20 seconds of staring directly at the sun is enough to damage those photoreceptors. So don't do it, right? They are that sensitive. Now, unfortunately, in addition to accidents, there are also diseases that also attack your photoreceptors. For example, macular degeneration, shown on the left, retinitis pigmentosa, shown on the right. And currently, there are no conventional cures for the most common forms of these diseases. And they are progressive. So one day you'll notice a blind spot, and then through the course of time, and it might take weeks or decades, depending on the disease, this blind spot will grow and gradually reduce the visual gateway to everything that you know and love. Now, most people don't realize that blindness is quite prevalent. For example, let's say that we all want to live beyond 80, right? That's a good plan, and it's likely. What people don't tell you is that means that you've got 25% chance of getting macular degeneration. So that's 1 in 4 of us in the room right now, and that's just one disease. Does anybody want any good news? Good news is that we're in an era where science is coming to the rescue with a number of strategies, one of which is bionic eyes. I've been interested in bionic eyes for a long time. I can tell some of you know who this is. This is my hero, the $6 million man. As a little kid, I was a big fan of science fiction. The $6 million man was an astronaut who was rebuilt after a crash, and he was given a bionic eye. Now, although it was written in the early 70s, it was based round about now, and the writers assumed that by now, a bionic eye would be vastly superior to our natural eye. The reality is, we're not even close, and that's not through lack of trying. It's because through evolution, nature has given you this amazing visual system that's very hard to replicate. Now, when I tell my undergraduate students it's hard to build a bionic eye, they look skeptical. They get out their cell phones and they say, look, this cell phone's got a great camera, Richard, haven't you thought about just putting that camera in the eye? You know, helpful suggestion, because really, you can now get digital sensors that have as many pixels as your eye does. But the bionic eye faces a challenge that the camera doesn't. It has to pass its electrical signal into the body's wiring to get it to the brain. And that's the challenge. So what do we know about passing electricity into the body? All right. Well, we've all heard of the horrors of Frankenstein's monster, right? So we're not going to do that. But what some people don't realize is that that science fiction was actually inspired by science fact. There was a French physician called Charles Leroy who told his patients to close their eyelids. Get ready for this. And when they closed their eyelid, he whipped out 2 electrodes and zapped their eyeballs with bolts of electricity. And after they recovered from the surprise, they reported that they'd seen flashes of light. And this is what had happened. So there's a neuron. And like we said earlier, the neurons string together to form a wire that carries the signal from the eye to the brain. Leroy's electrode had come in and induced a signal in that middle neuron, which passed it to the brain. But the brain assumed that the signal had come all the way from the photoreceptors in the eye, and so interpreted as a flash of light. So that means then that we can build implants with arrays of artificial photoreceptors, where each receptor receives light, converts it to an electrical signal, and then just like Leroy's electrodes, can pass the signal into the neurons and off to the brain. But we do have to get the electronics right. If you open up your computer or your digital camera or your cell phone, you will find conventional electronics that looks like this. And that is radically different from your body's wiring. Your neurons are fractal, featuring branches that repeat at many different magnifications. So at the U of O, we're building these bio-inspired electronics shown on the left that copy the fractal branches of the neurons shown on the right, with the idea that the neurons will interpret our electronics as being another fellow neuron rather than a foreign device. And our research shows that that enhanced communication could restore sight to over 1 million people. So statistically then, that's at least 1 person in this room, which will obviously be quite an honor if we can do that. But remember this, as shown by these simulations, an implant vision will never be as good as your natural vision. It will never be as good as this gift that nature has given you for free. And this is how many times you've used that gift in just a short presentation. So thank you for watching. Thank you.